Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Professor Groveshorn. Today we're going to introduce Standard 8.8, which is Classical China and Classical India. In the beginning, we're going to be talking about India, and then we'll move over to China here in just a few minutes. So if you're a little bit confused about China and India, it's probably because we have looked at ancient China and India already. And now we're coming back to them. And I think the reason why we're being confused is just because we've seen these words, but this is the main word here, classical. So obviously, this is going to be the difference in China and India. When we talked about them earlier, we talked about their very beginnings in the Indus River Valley and how their civilizations began. Here, we're talking about the classical age. So classical civilizations are those that they set the foundation for cultural values moving forward. In India, the classical age is the period when Indian society grew and thrived, setting the foundations in arts, science, politics, religion, philosophy, economics, anything that can define Indian culture to this very day. And it's the exact same set of things that we're looking at for China as well. So, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. And this is a Google slideshow. I'm going to be giving you all of the information that you need. So here we go with classical India and China. And just to kind of set the stage for you guys, by 600 BC, almost 1,000 years after the Aryan migrations, many small kingdoms were scattered throughout India. In 326 BC, Alexander the Great brought the Indus Valley in the northwest under Macedonian control, but left almost immediately. Soon after, a great Indian military leader, Chandragupta Maurya, seized power. And here we're looking at the Mauryan Empire is established. So Chandragupta Maurya may have been born in the powerful kingdom of Magadha, centered on the lower Ganges River. The kingdom was ruled by the Nanda family. Chandragupta gathered an army, killed the unpopular Nanda king, and in about 321 BC claimed the throne. This began the Mauryan Empire. Chandragupta moved northwest, seizing all the land from Magadha to the Indus. Around 305 BC, Chandragupta began to battle Seleucus I, one of Alexander the Great's generals. Seleucus had inherited part of Alexander's empire. He wanted to reestablish Macedonia and control the Indus Valley. After several years of fighting, however, Chandragupta defeated Seleucus. By 303 BC, the Mauryan Empire stretched more than 2,000 miles, uniting North India politically for the first time. To win his wars of conquest, Chandragupta raised a vast army, 600,000 soldiers on foot, 30,000 soldiers on horseback, and 9,000 elephants. To clothe, feed, and pay these troops, the government levied high taxes. For example, farmers had to pay up to one-half the value of their crops to the king. Chandragupta relied on an advisor named Kautilya, a member of the priestly caste. Kautilya wrote a ruler's handbook called the Arthashastra. I may be mispronouncing that. It's Arthasastra. This book proposed tough-minded policies to hold an empire together, including spying on the people and employing political assassination. Following Kautilya's advice, Chandragupta created a highly bureaucratic government. He divided the empire into 4 provinces, each headed by a royal prince. Each province was then divided into local districts, whose officials assessed taxes and enforced the law. Eager to stay at peace with the Indian emperor, Seleucus sent an ambassador. This man's name was Megasthenes to Chandragupta's capital. Megasthenes wrote glowing descriptions of Chandragupta's palace. With its gold-covered pillars, many fountains, and imposing thrones, the capital city featured beautiful parks and bustling markets. Megasthenes also described the countryside and how farmers lived. In 301 BC, Chandragupta's son assumed the throne. He ruled for 32 years. Then Chandragupta's grandson, Asoka, brought the Mauryan Empire to its greatest heights. Asoka became king of the Mauryan Empire in 269 BC. At first, he followed in Chandragupta's footsteps, waging war to expand his empire. During a bloody war against the neighboring state of Kalinga, 100,000 soldiers were slain, and even more civilians perished. Although victorious, Asoka felt sorrow over the slaughter at Kalinga. As a result, he studied Buddhism and decided to rule by the Buddha's teaching of peace to all beings. Throughout the empire, Asoka erected huge stone pillars inscribed with his new policies. Some edicts guaranteed that Asoka would treat his subjects fairly and humanely. Others preached nonviolence. Still, others urged religious toleration, acceptance of people who held different religious beliefs. Asoka had extensive roads built so that he could visit the far corners of India. He also improved conditions along these roads to make travel easier for his officials and to improve communication in the vast empire. For example, every 9 miles he had wells dug and rest houses built. This allowed travelers to stop and refresh themselves. Such actions demonstrated Asoka's concern for his subjects' well-being. Noble as his policies of toleration and nonviolence were, they failed to hold the empire together after Asoka died in 232 BC. And they're going to go through a period of turmoil. And here you see an old picture of Asoka, or a drawing. Asoka's death left a power vacuum in northern and central India. Regional kings challenged the imperial government. The kingdoms of central India, which had only been loosely held in the Mauryan Empire, soon regained their independence. The Andhra dynasty arose and dominated the region for hundreds of years. Because of their central position, the Andhras profited from the extensive trade between North and South India and also with Rome, Sri Lanka, and Southeast Asia. At the same time, northern India had to absorb a flood of new people fleeing political instability in other parts of Asia. For 500 years, beginning about 185 BC, wave after wave of Greeks, Persians, and Central Asians poured into northern India. These invaders disrupted Indian society, but they also introduced new languages and customs that added to the already rich blend of Indian culture. Southern India also experienced turmoil. It was home to 3 kingdoms that had never been conquered by the Mauryans. The people who lived in this region spoke the Tamil language and are called the Tamil people. These 3 kingdoms often were at war with one another and with other states. And then, guys, we're going to move after that Mauryan Empire and the Andhra dynasty. We're going to move into the Gupta dynasty. After 500 years of invasion and turmoil, a strong leader arose in the northern state of Magadha. His name was Chandragupta, but he was no relation to India's first emperor, Chandragupta Maurya. India's second empire, the Gupta Empire, oversaw a great flowering of Indian civilization, especially Hindu culture. The first Gupta emperor came to power not through battle but by marrying a daughter of an influential royal family. After his marriage, Chandragupta I took the title Great King of Kings in AD 320. His empire included Magadha and the area north of it. With his power base along the Ganges River, his son, Samudragupta, became king in AD 335. Although a lover of the arts, Samudra had a warlike side. He expanded the empire through 40 years of conquest. The Gupta era is the first period for which historians have much information about daily life in India. Most Indians lived in small villages. The majority were farmers who walked daily from their homes to outlying fields. Craftspeople and merchants clustered in specific districts and towns. They had shops on the street level and lived in the rooms above. Most Indian families were patriarchal, headed by the eldest male. Parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, and children all worked together to raise their crops. Because drought was common, farmers often had to irrigate their crops. There was a tax on water, and every month people had to give a day's worth of labor to maintain wells, irrigation ditches, reservoirs, and dams. As in Mauryan times, farmers owed a large part of their earnings to the king. Southern India followed a different cultural pattern. Some Tamil groups were matriarchal, headed by the mother rather than the father. Property and sometimes the throne was passed through the female line. While village life followed unchanging traditional patterns, the royal court of the third Gupta emperor was a place of excitement and growth. Indians revered Chandragupta II for his heroic qualities. He defeated the Shakas, enemies to the west, and added their coastal territory to his empire. This allowed the Guptas to engage in profitable trade with the Mediterranean world. Chandragupta II also strengthened his empire through peaceful means by negotiating diplomatic and marriage alliances. He ruled from AD 375 to 415. During the reign of the first three Guptas, India experienced a period of great achievement in the arts, religious thought, and science. These will be discussed in the next section when we go a little further with ancient India. After Chandragupta II died, new invaders threatened northern India. These fierce fighters, called the Hunas, were related to the Huns who invaded the Roman Empire. Over the next 100 years, the Gupta Empire broke into small kingdoms. Many were overrun by the Hunas or other Central Asian nomads. The empire ended about 535 AD.